everybody, welcome back. Now the title of this video is very much up for debate. The weirdest WCW pay-per-view of 2000. I mean, there's quite a lot to pick from. Bash at the Beach 2000, for example, is probably the most ridiculous. If you're looking at all of WCW in history, their most infamous pay-per-view is possibly Starrcade 97. But in terms of the weirdest WCW pay-per-view of 2000, I don't think you can look much further than the Great American Bash. But if you haven't already, I should mention, you probably should go and watch the previous episode in this series of weirdest wrestling episodes or whatever, because I do the Nitro, the Go Home Nitro, before this pay-per-view. It's great fun. Check out the video. I'm on the verge of a breakdown from kind of the second half of the video to the end. But don't worry too much. You don't have to remember everything, because for the big matches of this very show, I'll give a little breakdown of the storyline heading into it, or like the major feuds or whatever. So we'll all be good. We'll all be caught up with what's going on. There's a lot going on. So without any further ado, oh my god, here we go. Oh my god, it's gonna be good. Luke, please hit the intro. This is the weirdest WCW pay-per-view of the year 2000. There's one or two kind of bits and bobs to catch up on, because after the Go Home Nitro, of course, we had an episode of Thunder where there were some developments. I'll just run through these very quickly now. The Cruiserweight title was won by Lieutenant Loco of the Misfits in action. Because that's Chavo Guerrero, and he won the belt, and he's going to defend it on this pay-per-view. You also might remember that Eric Bischoff in the last episode beat Terry Funk for the Hardcore title on Nitro. Great booking. Well, he's just given that to Vito and Johnny the Bull now. He didn't even lose the belt. He just gave it to them off screen. So Vito and Johnny the Bull are both co-hardcore champions. It's kind of like the Freebird rules in effect. Hulk Hogan added a stipulation to his match with Billy Kidman. Yes, Billy Kidman at the pay-per-view. Hogan now gets a title shot. If he wins, he becomes #1 contender. But if he loses, he has to retire forever. I wonder who's going to win. And at the end of this episode of Thunder, Bischoff has Goldberg arrested for all of his badass actions over the past couple of weeks. So does that mean Goldberg's not going to be able to be on this show? I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's June 11th, 2000, and we are in Baltimore, Maryland. Good morning, Baltimore. Every day's like an
1 hour later.
Every night's like a fantasy. Wrestling's great fun for you and me. Good morning. Okay, that's quite enough of that. We open the show with The Police.
Oh, if you're in Scotland, the police.
Not the band The Police, but the actual Baltimore Police Department, who are stationed all around the outside of the arena to stop Goldberg from getting in. Yeah, it would be weird if it was the band The Police, wouldn't it? Although Sting is wrestling on this show. So the very fact that they're stationed around to keep Goldberg out means that even though he was arrested on Thunder, they already let him go, despite him assaulting several police officers on national television. I don't know how, I don't understand, but you know, it's fair enough. Will he show up to this one? Who knows? Yes, he will do. Yes, he does. But before all that, it's time to open with the first match of the night, and we open with, oh my goodness me, it's the Misfits in action. But I might not do the theme tune anymore, because I saw actually that the editor of this series, Luke, who does a wonderful job by the way, I saw he got a little bit combative on the last one. He made me look like a fool. He made me look like a damn fool in front of my people, my audience, you, the people of YouTube. And yeah, I hate him now. Anyway, the Misfits are here to support their boy Chavo Guerrero as he defends his newly won Cruiserweight Championship against a member of the rival stable, the Filthy Animals, and that member is Disco Inferno. Chavo cuts a promo before the match and says, well, Disco, I hope you're ready for this, because say hello to my little friend, he actually says the Scarface line, pulls out a grenade, and he's like, oh, I've got a grenade. And Hugh Morris is like, whoa, give that here right now. We're off to a mad start. Here come the Filthy Animals, and it must be said that they look very, very early 2000s in their aesthetic. Disco is dressed like Kobe Bryant. Conan's dressed a bit like Tommy Vercetti. Rey Mysterio is dressed like early 2000s Eminem. And Juventud Guerrera, he just doesn't know where he is, does he? Bless him. Look at him. He doesn't know why he's here. Pretty early on, Disco gets knocked to the outside of the ring and the Misfits in action just beat him up. Surely that's a DQ, right? No, it's not, because remember, I need to remind you, WCW is operating under a relaxed rules policy around this time, so it's all kind of referee's discretion, and it rarely gets enforced consistently, which does become frustrating at times. All the time. A little bit later on, the opposite happens where Chavo gets knocked outside the ring, so the Filthy Animals beat him up and blah, blah, blah. But a little way into the match, there's been relatively few shenanigans. Not enough shenanigans, really, for a 2000's WCW pay-per-view. But uh-oh, here comes Grandpa. Yeah, down the ramp comes the bloke from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you know, the Dick Van Dyke's dad in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He comes down to the ring. It's not actually him. He comes down to the ring and he's having a great time, I suppose. He hits on Tigress, the valet of the Filthy Animals, and you can hear him go like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. You look like Jennifer Lopez." And I'm like, what? Whoa, he's coming on a bit strong. Now, the Filthy Animals are not happy about this, obviously, and right, I need to really break down the sequence of events here because it's bad news for Grandpa. First of all, Rey Mysterio obviously isn't happy. He comes over and argues with the Grandpa like a little bit. He's like, "That's my girl, dog," and stuff, but he's not full on angry. He's just a little bit mad. Then here comes Big Conan, and he argues aggressively. He's in Grandpa's face. He's pushing him in the chest. He's pointing at him. He doesn't really make physical contact, actually. But the Grandpa takes a bump anyway. Like a full-on bump. He's unconscious. Look at him. He's not moving. He's laid out. Tell you what, that actor must be a huge Conan fan because he's putting him over strong. He took a bump from being argued at. Meanwhile, this is all going on. The referee is distracted by this. Juventud gets in the ring and he hits a prone Chavo Guerrero with... Actually, I'll give you a few seconds, right? Try and guess which move Juventud Guerrero tries to hit on Chavo right now. I'll give you a couple more seconds. Have you got a move in your mind? Here we go. He hits him, or tries to hit him with... Did you guess the people's elbow? Yeah, I was really confused about this, so I did a bit of research, and this was around the sort of time that Juventud Guerrero decided, with the green lighting of nobody, no one said, "Go for this, Juvie, this will be a great idea," just decided to try and feud with The Rock. WWF's The Rock, possibly like the biggest star in wrestling at that time. Yeah, Juvie was like, "I think I can get his attention." So he'd come out on WCW TV and like steal The Rock's catchphrases, steal his moves and stuff. And I think The Rock may have mentioned him in like one promo once ever when he was talking to Jericho. But apart from that, it didn't really go anywhere. Anyway, he misses the elbow, obviously. Corporal Cajun gets in the ring. He hits a move on Disco and then pulls Chavo on top. Chavo wins the match. He retains the belt. Yay! If you watched the last video in this series, you'll know I got confused during a post-match brawl where the comparatively smaller Filthy Animals just battered the Misfits in action, like they dominated them in this brawl. And I thought, well, maybe that was a one-off fluke. Turns out no, because here, the exact same thing happens again. Everyone piles in, and the Filthy Animals just batter these army lads. Juventud Guerrero, even as they're leaving, decides to just stomp the unconscious old man, just lying on the floor, not bothering anyone. Juvie's like, "Bah, have that, you old prick." The Animals all leave. The MIA are all like worrying about Grandpa, but not with the required level of drama, in my opinion. They're kind of like, "Oh man, he's unconscious. He might be dead. Bloody hell, what do we do?" The answer is that Major Guns is going to have to give him mouth to mouth. Oh no, this is going to be... I've got a sense, my spidey sense is tingling that this is going to be in some way tasteless. Also, mouth to mouth, right? I think we'll all agree. It's a fairly urgent procedure. You've kind of got to get a move on. Not if you're Major Guns, because she pauses to rip her vest off and just have like her bra on underneath, and everyone's like, "Whoa, bloke's dying on the floor, Major Guns, come on." She gets down there. I really think she didn't want to do this. I mean, she gives him mouth to mouth for a bit, and then in a shocking turn of events, actually, the guy grabs her in like an alligator death roll, and the rest of the Misfits have to drag him off and be like, "Come on, Grandpa, you can't be assaulting people like that. Come on now, you naughty man." And we're all meant to think, oh, they're just a family, aren't they? They're just a wacky bunch of friends, and they all love each other, and they're all crazy, but they're all lovely guys. And I'm thinking, no, they're not. By the way, that was only the first match of the show. I mean, I feel like a lot happened there. Backstage we go to Eric Bischoff. Yes, it's Bischoff. He caused me to have a breakdown in the last video. He took up way too much of the pay-per-view. He'd have a slightly reduced role this time, but there's still plenty of that good stuff from Eric. Eric's still... his fingerprints are all over this. Bischoff wants to be assured by the police that there's no way Goldberg can get in the building because Bischoff wants nobody to ruin the special evil surprise he's got in store for Kevin Nash in the main event. Eric, you cheeky man. It's time for the next match, but hold on a second, lads, because did you know that if you order the Great American Bash 2000 on pay-per-view, you can also get, especially for the summer, a Hulk Hogan inflatable raft. Take that to the pool, impress your friends. Hang on. Item no longer available. Oh man. The next match is a tag team match to become the #1 contender for the tag team titles between the babyface team of Chronic and the heel team of co-hardcore champions, remember, Big Vito and Johnny the Bull. And I must say that Chronic's entrance gear makes them look like actors in a very adult adaptation of the Matrix franchise. Like, you could call it the Matrix Resurrections. Matrix Resurrections. Very pleased with myself with that one. There's not a lot to really report from this match. Like, Chronic really dominate. They're big, scary guys. Resurrection. They're big, scary guys. And the story of the match is that Vito keeps the hardcore belt on throughout because he's really proud of it. He's like polishing it. He doesn't want it to get damaged or anything. And the crowd just crap all over it. Like, they're trying to tell a bit of a story and the crowd are just like, both teams suck. Both teams suck. And I'm like, oh, it's brutal, this. I'm loving it. Chronic at one point steal the hardcore belt from Vito and throw it out the ring, but then Vito proves that he actually is hardcore because he survives what I can only describe, and I hope that Luke's got a screenshot of this, like a vertical head drop F5. Look at that. Look at the state of that move. He kicked out a 2 from that. And by the way, look at this screenshot from a few seconds after this move. He's fine. He's not selling anything. Bloody hell. Johnny the Bull takes over. He tries to leap to the top rope in a single bound like Shelton Benjamin, botches it, and the crowd just go boo! And they're really wanting this match to end. Johnny does it again, in fairness, and manages to repeat the spot, but the crowd, we're 2 matches into the show, the crowd are already wanting to leave. Johnny tries to make the tag to Vito, but he's not on the apron, he's on the outside polishing his belt again. Vito, what you like? Chronic hit a double team move on Johnny the Bull and easily win the match, and they are now the #1 contenders. Golly gosh, I hope they can do it. I don't know if you don't find out on this show. I don't actually know if they do. Have a Google if you want. Have a look. Backstage, the often verbally abused female interviewer says to DDP, listen DDP, you've got your match with Mike Awesome coming up, and Mike Awesome said that he wants to end your career. And DDP says, what, you're calling him a career killer? Shut up, you bimbo. This guy's the babyface of the feud. Both DDP and the interviewer, they're messing up their lines a lot in this promo, like it's really bad, but thankfully it doesn't last long because the match is right now. So the story here, the source of the beef between the two, is that Mike Awesome is allies with DDP's estranged wife, Kimberly, because Mike Awesome and Kimberly are both in the evil New Blood faction led by Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo. On the episode of Nitro I watched in the last video, DDP teamed with a young Stacy Keibler to beat Mike Awesome and Kimberly in a mixed tag match, but now it's time to settle this feud once and for all with an ambulance match. And now we get a bit of a shock return because DDP makes his entrance wheeling a wheelchair-bound Chris Kanyon to the stage to watch the match. Kanyon obviously took a terrifying bump that you may have seen at Slamboree in the infamous triple cage match where he fell off, I think, the 2nd level of the triple cage all the way down, maybe just the 1st level, but it was a big drop anyway, all the way down to the stage or the ramp below where Mike Awesome shoved him off because he was trying to protect DDP. So Kanyon and DDP, they're tight, they're allies, and Canyon's now out of hospital but still in the wheelchair. So that's kind of the background you need for this. DDP and Awesome have a big brawl to start. They both just punch the referee. Like, I think the referee's meant to get caught up in the melee and knocked over unintentionally, but he's not quite close enough to the action. So both men have to go. It looks like they just go, bang, have that, son. Like, they don't like this ref for no reason. The match goes on. Oh, one sec, guys. Bit of breaking news. Big Billy P's in the house. Yes, I love Big Billy P. I was worried he wasn't going to make the show. They have then like kind of a pretty standard hardcore brawl. They have a big chair battle, clashy, clash. Awesome puts DDP through a table and the medics come down and load DDP onto the stretcher because in this variation of the ambulance match, it's not like in WWE where you have to physically put your opponent into the ambulance. Medics are there to do that for them and they have to decide whether the rest of themselves has to decide whether they're incapacitated enough or not, basically. So DDP's brave, he's a babyface. He's getting wheeled up the ramp on the stretcher, but he's like, no, and he fights the medics off. So I haven't got a huge problem with either variation of the ambulance match, but basically that's what's going on here. For a brief second, Kimberly Page runs out to get involved and she smashes a lead pipe over DDP's back, but then here comes Stacy Keibler and grabs Kimberly by the hair and they scuffle to the back. Because on the last episode I watched, they were feuding as well, kind of, because Kimberly Page called Stacy Keibler a geek, even though she's not, and Stacy Keibler called Kimberly Page fat, even though she's not. So it was really good. DDP hits a diamond cutter, like an avalanche diamond cutter off the top, and Mike Awesome's out cold. It looks like DDP's going to win. Awesome's getting wheeled up on the stretcher, and then, oh no, Eric Bischoff's music hits. No. But then DDP hears my prayers and immediately takes Bischoff out. And I'm like, yes, go on, Diamond Dallas Page, son. But then hang on, what? This all happens in like seconds of each other, by the way, like it's so rushed. Chris Kanyon pulls a Linda McMahon, but like a year before Linda would actually do it, gets out of his wheelchair, he can walk all along, he's fine, and he diamond cutters DDP off the stage. No! DDP gets loaded into the ambulance and Awesome wins, and I hate this Chris Kanyon heel turn for two main reasons. The first reason, quite obviously, is because the pacing is all over the place, like it's so rushed. If you watch the Linda one, it's in the middle of the ring, they all take their time, everybody's really focused on Linda standing up, and the payoff is huge, everyone pops massively for it. It's a really great moment in WrestleMania history, really, even though it's very silly, of course. But it works, and this really doesn't, because you've got, here's Bischoff, no, DDP's taking him out, but then Canyon's, what, hang on, what's going on? And it's just too fast. I think wrestling can often work best when things are allowed to breathe for a second, and they didn't follow any of those rules here. Second reason is, why did Eric Bischoff have to be involved? He was completely redundant in this turn. Just have DDP about to win and then Kanyon screws him and does the same exact spot and it would be a lot better. But why do you have to have Bischoff's music hit and then he comes out and takes the attention totally away from the point of the swerve, from the point of the angle? I really don't understand it, apart from like maybe Bischoff just wanted to be on the show. We saw in the last episode that he had a bit of an ego around this point. I should also point out, by the way, I forgot to mention this nearly, that Bischoff's music plays from the moment he comes out all the way through the swerve and everything, all the way to the end of the match. Like he's bloody New Jack or something. Awful booking. Really upsetting scenes. Next up, who's that up there? Is that Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania bloody 12? No, it's not. It's Booker T, aka G.I. Bro of the Misfits in Action, here ziplining to the ring for his mid-card singles match with Shawn Stasiak. I tell a slight lie, it's not actually a singles match, it's a boot camp match, which is basically last man standing rules. Shivani on commentary says it's a fight until there's one man left standing, just like a boot camp. Now, I'm not a military expert, but is that true? They brawl to begin, they head to the outside, Booker just throws Stasiak into the front row and wipes out about 3 fans, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. But on the positive side, at least Jim Cornette's having a good time. They have quite a long, slow brawl, and it's confusing for the crowd because they are really behind Booker T, like he's really over, but on the other hand, they're not invested in this match. So they're cheering for Booker, but then they're also chanting boring, boring. So there's a weird vibe to this one. Booker finally gets the advantage, hits the bookend, and a missile dropkick off the top. It looks like he's gonna win, but then here comes Stasiak's fellow tag team champion, Chuck Palumbo, sprinting down to the ring, and then things sort of just become a 2-on-1 handicap match. Booker still wins though, which really makes the tag division look bad, because these are your tag team champions, and Booker's beaten them without any help from anybody else. Like, he's just beaten the tag team champions 2-on-1 on his own. And I love Booker T, but he's not like Brock Lesnar or someone. The final blow was with a weapon brought to the ring by Palumbo, but it's actually Stasiak's Lex Flexor, which Booker hits Stasiak with, and he can't get up for the 10 count. I think this is because Stasiak had stolen Lex Luger's gimmick, and that's why he's got the Lex Flex. There was some background to this, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't be asked to do my research for this one. I'm sorry. Look, I know it's the very point of the video, but there's a lot more to come. We get an update from the back, by the way, after this match, where DDP's fighting his way out of the ambulance and he's walking off under his own power. But that's not the main story here, because in the background, outside the venue, who should pull up? Well, we don't know who, but it's quite obvious because it's a customized Goldberg monster truck. I do love the idea, though, in kayfabe of Goldberg sat in his hotel room that morning thinking, right, there's probably going to be police around trying to keep me out of the venue, so do I maybe try and disguise myself as a fan? Do I try and find a secret back entrance in? Or do I take my massive personalized monster truck and park out the front of the building? I think that one sounds fun. Next up, it's Shane Douglas versus The Wall. That's The Wall, brother. In a tables match. But Shane Douglas cuts a promo before the match and wants to change the stipulation. And he says, I don't want to do a normal tables match. I want to do a best of 5 tables match with 5 tables broken. The commentary team try and correct Shane and say, well, actually, if there's 5 tables broke, that's going to be best of 9 if you've got to break 5 tables to win. But it turns out they're both wrong, because Shane did mean best of 5, but what he really should have said was between 3 and 5 tables broken in order for one person to win. Everyone's wrong here. It's WCW. Anyway, this match is all about the table spots, obviously, so let's just get to them. The Wall choke slams Shane Douglas through a table. It's 1-0 to the Wall. The Wall suplexes Shane Douglas through a table. It's 2-0 to the Wall. It's all going really well for the Wall. By the way, remember Vito before taking that like F5 death drop thing and just no-selling it seconds later? Here's a picture of Shane Douglas moments after being put through 2 tables going, come on then, the Wall, come on mate, I'm still standing. Why does nobody sell on this show? Douglas baits the Wall all the way to the side of the stage where he set up a huge ladder and 3 tables stacked on top of each other. And I'm like, the Wall, don't follow him. You're 2-0 up. This is bad strategy. I bet he'd be bad at chess. Quite predictably, the Wall gets knocked through all 3 tables and instantly loses the match in 1 move. But commentary don't even realize there were 3 tables there. They thought they were just 2 tables, so they don't even know that the match is over, man. Like, nothing on this show goes off without a hitch. The Wall is very angry about this after the match and puts the referee through 1 final table. And the ref takes the best bump comfortably of this entire match. So, well done, the ref. Good table bumpage. Next up, it's time for Scott Steiner. Nothing's finer than Scotty Steiner versus Tank Abbott. Tank Abbott is obviously an MMA-based heel. He's a member of the New Blood. He recently lost to Goldberg in Goldberg's first match back from injury. Scott Steiner is a babyface who just sleeps with so many women and is also the United States champion. The match begins and there's barely a few seconds that have passed when the ring announcer goes, just got an announcement from Bischoff and Russo. And I'm like, oh my God, just no. You can leave that in, Luke, but I don't know what that noise I just made was. Sorry, everybody. I'd just like to apologise for that last little noise there. No. But anyway, the ring announcer's like, yeah, this is now a 2-on-1 handicap match because Rick Steiner's involved as well. And here comes Rick, barreling down to the ring, because he's a heel as well. He wants to beat up his brother. And it's also an asylum match, so the cage is being lowered slowly from the ceiling. While all this is going on, I'm just like, sensory overload. Like, I don't quite know what's happening. Like, so much is changing. Bischoff and Russo are definitely worshippers of Tzinch. I've been trying to learn about Warhammer 40k, right? I know nothing about it, but Tzinch, he's the master of change, isn't he? He's one of the chaos gods. I love it. I don't understand it. The lore's way too deep. I just know there's going to be someone in the comments. It's pronounced Zinch. The T is silent. Actually, I don't care, all right? I don't care. Why? But if I don't care, why have I brought it up? Oh, I'm just going to crack on with the wrestling. So anyway, back to the action. The cage is coming down, and Scott Steiner's laid out by this point. The cage is going to crush him, and very sportingly, his opponents just kind of shuffle him out of the way so that the cage misses him, and I'm like, oh, they're not such bad guys after all. Tank Abbott decides to get things hardcore in this match, and he gets a chain out of his pocket, but Rick Steiner, like, he's feuding with Scott, but also it's his brother, and he's like, well, not a chain, Tank, like, that's a bit too far. And Tank Abbott's like, you know what, yeah, you're right, I guess I'll put the chain away. Just kidding! Goes to hit Scott Steiner, but Rick pushes his brother out of the way and takes the bullet bravely for him. Now, what I've described there is what's supposed to happen. Instead, shockingly for this pay-per-view, they actually mess it up a little bit. I think that they didn't make it clear enough that Rick was pushing Scott out of the way, so Tank has to just like alter his aim, and it looks like Tank's just decided to punch Rick for no reason. In fact, that's what Shivani thinks has happened on commentary, and then the other commentators have to be like, no, I think that the bullet was, and it's just a bit of a mess. Anyway, Rick Steiner's totally out cold. Scott Steiner gets control of the chain, uses it to put like a chain-assisted Steiner recliner on Tank Abbott, who taps out, and Scott Steiner wins the match. Yes, now we can go and bang all of his freaks. Oh man. Moving very swiftly on, the next match is Hulk Hogan versus Billy Kidman. We need a bit of background on this one. So Hogan's been feuding with Kidman, and apparently this started after real heat between the two because Hogan publicly buried Kidman, using him as an example of jealous, dissatisfied WCW mid-carders who know that they just can't be bigger stars like him, like Hulk Hogan. What a guy, what a nice man. As mentioned before, if Hogan wins tonight, he gets a title shot, but if he loses, he has to retire. But the special guest referee is his nephew, Horace Hogan. Look at him. You're not the real Hogan, you're not the one we know. And you might think, oh, that's great, you know, he's related to the Hulkster, so what's the problem? Well, it turns out on that last Nitro I watched, they're not friends. Hulk Hogan battered his own nephew without a single care in the world, by the way. Like, he ran in, he was like, this is a cage match, let's go, and just and beat up his own flesh and blood. Hogan has a pre-match interview before this one with Mean Gene, which is kind of nice to see. Like, it's quite nostalgic, isn't it? But it highlights all the problems with WCW's face-heel setup of their whole roster at this point in time. Because as I've alluded to in the past, you've got the washed up older guys clinging on to their spots at the expense of the younger, hungrier talent. But by and large, the older guys are the baby faces and the young, hungry ones are the heels. And it's hard to get behind the older guy when you've got the young talent coming up. Do you see what I mean? Hogan's like the perfect example of this in this promo, because he says, first of all, he said Billy Kidman's nothing but a flea market champion. And then he says, me and Eugene, we're legends in this business and we can stick around and hold on to our spots for as long as we damn well please. And I'm like, man, this guy's the babyface. The match starts and the crowd clearly agree with me, because Hogan gets in the ring and there's just signs saying like, please retire and happy retirement Hogan and you're a dodgy man and you've got leathery flesh. Well, the last two I made up. You're a dodgy man. Well, I'm not lying. Hogan dominates the match early on against the much smaller Kidman, but despite the size advantage, Hogan still feels the need to bend the rules. Like, he hits a low blow, he's whipping Kidman with his weight belt. Horace, the referee, who's supposed to be sympathetic to the heels, does nothing about this, and I'm like, hang on, is a babyface turn incoming? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yes, it is. It 100% is, yes. At one stage, Billy gives Hogan a DDT onto a chair lying flat in the ring, and Hogan just absolutely chickens out of that bump, man. Like, he doesn't take it well at all. It makes Kidman look bad, which is a shame, because later on, Kidman makes Hogan look amazing by launching himself from just a hip toss through the announce table, and he's like selling, and it looks like a train wreck, and I feel bad for Billy in this match, man. I genuinely do. At one stage, Kidman's girlfriend Tori Wilson comes down to the ring. She gets on the apron and hands Hogan a pair of brass knuckles, but then Kidman hits Hogan in the back and then he hits Tori, and it's that old spot. Tori falls off the apron. Kidman gets control of the brass knuckles, clocks Hogan, covers him, but Hogan kicks out at 2. Billy's angry at the ref and knocks him out with the brass knuckles. That's our boy, that's Horace Hogan. He measures Hulk as well, but then Tori Wilson, his own girlfriend, gets in the ring behind Kidman, low blows him, and has betrayed her boyfriend, damn it. Obviously from here, it's very straightforward for Hogan to win the match, which he does, and then he hugs it out with his nephew, and they're all reunited and stuff, and it's all very nice. But I've never wanted to cheer somebody less. Why are we supposed to be all buzzing for the Hulkster for winning this match, when, one, it was against an opponent he buried in the pre-match promo, calling him a flea market champion. 2, he needed help from Tori Wilson and a set of brass knuckles to win the thing. He got the pinfall after a brass knuckles shot, by the way. And 3, the referee was his own nephew. What? You haven't overcome any odds. You're like the anti-John Cena Hulk. Also, much like the Chris Kanyon swerve from earlier, I hate this Tori Wilson swerve, again, for 2 key reasons. Number 1, before the low blow, which everyone went, wow, Tori's betrayed Billy, she already tried to give Hulk Hogan the brass knuckles earlier in the match, so her allegiances were clear from the start. Why was the low blow supposed to be such a shocking moment? And 2, she already turned on Billy Kidman on the Monday go-home episode of Nitro. She'd already done it, we already knew this. Why did they repeat the spot again? Why didn't they just save it for the pay-per-view and not have it on Nitro at all? I'm starting to lose my... Next up is Ric Flair versus David Flair, accompanied by Vince Russo. Oh, good. So the story here is basically that David Flair hates his dad and has fallen under the evil influence of Vince Russo, who he helped beat Ric Flair in a cage match on that go-home Nitro. It was really rubbish. Also, if Ric loses, he'll have to retire forever. Now, I've noticed something at this point, right? So, on the Nitro episode, we had Ric Flair having a cage match against Russo, but one match before that, Hogan had a match, which he last minute made a cage match as well. He was like, there's a cage there, brother, I'll get it down. I'm like, well, kind of stole Ric's thunder there a little bit, Terry. And now at the pay-per-view, we've got Ric Flair having a match where he'll have to retire if he loses, but on Thunder, Hogan added that same stipulation to his match against Billy Kidman. So Hogan's just stealing Flair's thunder all over the place. Like, is Ric alright with this? Man, Hogan's a dick. I never knew that about him. The match begins. Surprisingly, David Flair takes control of the early stages. They head to the outside, and David's laying in some chops to his dad, right next to the love child of Ronald McDonald and Fred Durst. Yeah! A little bit later on, David Flair distracts the referee while Ric Flair's on the outside, and Russo just batters him, like smacks him with a baseball bat. Camera misses it. So we couldn't enjoy that spot. Now Russo and David kind of go into cheating, heelish overdrive. Russo handcuffs Flair's hands together. David's distracting the ref again while Russo's choking Ric like under the bottom rope. And at this point, Ric's youngest son, Reed Flair, hops the guardrail and gets involved to try and stop Russo. Russo just goes, get away from me, like fully shoves the kid over. To massive heat, in fairness, like you've just pushed over like a 12-year-old, so I understand, but he really didn't hold back. Ric Flair, though, he's not lying down. He pops right back up and gives Russo a low blow to a huge pop, of course. Now, some of you may know that tragically Ric Flair did lose his life at quite a young age, which was very sad indeed. So I'm not going to say anything. Well, I wasn't even going to say anything bad about him anyway, but I don't think I even have to pretend, because just from this small involvement of Ric Flair, you can tell that he's got just such a natural grasp for the pacing of wrestling, way more than his older brother David, which is a shame, because David's the one in the match. Sorry, like, no offense to David, but come on. The referee finally unhandcuffs Flair, and then Ashley Flair jumps the guardrail and handcuffs Vince Russo. Then she heads up top and hits a sick moonsault to the outside, and then natural selection and figure eight. Woo! No, she didn't do any of that. She hasn't really learned how to do any of that stuff yet, but that's all in her future, isn't it? That's pretty much the signal for the end of the match, because Rick puts David in the figure four. Russo's handcuffed, he can't really help him, and David tippity taps out. And Rick wins and doesn't have to retire. Yay, but we've already seen that with Hogan like minutes ago, so it's not as happy a moment as it could have been. Russo gets on the mic, but is kind of still handcuffed, so David's helping him, and he cuts a promo and says, "I'll get you, Flair. I'll get you, Flair. I'm walking here. I'll get you, Flair." And we cut to the ramp, and in a heartwarming scene, all the Flair family are just stood there, just giving crotch chops, going, "Suck it. Suck our collective pecker."
Oh, where?
Nice moment. Next up, oh yes, it's the penultimate match of the night, and it's Sting versus my boy Vampiro in a Human Torch match. The only way to win is to set your opponent on fire. This is pro wrestling. There's a bit of a feud going on here. Vampiro and Sting were allies for a short time, but now Sting's in the Babyface Millionaires Club stable, Vampiro's in the heel New Blood stable, but all you basically need to know, like, you can kind of ignore that, it's just evil goth versus good goth, fire, and I can't think of a third thing. You don't need a third thing. That's what it is. Vampiro enters first and lights a torch on his way to the ring and then heads down the ramp and stuff. But then Sting doesn't make his entrance. He appears on top of the Tron and pulls the torch up to him. And he's like, gets on the mic and he's like, "Vampiro, if you want to set me on fire, I hope you're not scared of heights, because I'm not. You're going to have to come up here to set me on fire, because the torch is up here with me on the Tron." And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? This is so cinematic. It's like a Metal Gear Solid cutscene. I'm like half expecting Vampiro to take a knee in the ring and like put one hand and just whip out his codec and be like, "Commander, I don't know what's going on here." And then they probably talk about like the Cold War or Godzilla or something. It's been a while since I've played MGS. I'm waiting to see what Vampiro does, because he doesn't want to go up there. He looks quite scared. But then Sting, for some reason, the camera cuts to him. He's abseiling down the side of the Tron. So even though he said come up here, takes the fight to Vampiro on the ground level anyway, so I don't quite understand that. Not for long though, because Vampiro beats up Sting, covers him in petrol or gasoline if you're from the States, and then they get up onto the top of the Tron, like they brawl all the way up, and they're fighting on top of the Tron, and the torch is right there, and Sting's covered in petrol, and there's like flickering lights and thunder and lightning effects. They're trying to make us believe that there's a storm going on indoors, and it sounds good, but it's kind of not, and the crowd is silent because they can't see what's going on. They brawl for what feels like ages because you can't really see what's going on, but eventually Vampiro grabs the torch, sets Sting on fire, and then Sting does the big dive off the Tron onto a crash mat below. Now it's clearly a stunt double, but that's fine, I can let that slide, because I wouldn't expect Sting to actually take like such a bump that you'd want a professional stuntman to do. But on the other hand, I do have a problem with the reaction to this spot, because Vampiro's won the match and everything, he's celebrating, but we cut to commentary and they've all got their serious faces on and their serious voices and they all look serious, apart from Schiavone, who just doesn't want to be, he's checked out, doesn't want to be there. But remember, this came so soon, like maybe less than a year, about a year after the Owen Hart tragedy, so I think this was tonally a big misstep from WCW here. And the match was not that great, very gimmicky, couldn't quite work out what was going on. For a match I was excited for, because I really love Vampiro and Sting's cool and everything, just didn't live up to the hype. Only one man can follow such a dramatic segment, and that man, oh yes, it's Eric Bischoff. Bischoff's backstage, and basically the point of this little interview is that Bischoff's still worried about Goldberg driving around in his monster truck outside, that he's now abandoned his plans for his nasty evil surprise for Kevin Nash in the main event. I don't believe him, neither should you. I think that surprise is still coming. Michael Buff is here, which only means one thing, it's main event time. Let's get ready to... Ooh. Has he trademarked that? I'm scared to say it. This is Jeff Jarrett, the WCW champion, defending the belt against Kevin Nash. The story going into this one is that Kev has been kind of the main force standing in the way of Eric Bischoff's evil New Blood stable. Alongside Nash is his unlikely best mate Goldberg, which is bad news for the heels because like these two really powerful baby faces finally joining forces despite their history and everything. But then on the other hand, you know, the heels make the rules. It's Bischoff and Russo, so there's probably going to be some shenanigans for Kev to overcome if he wants to win the belt here. It's fairly simple story. I don't mind it in theory, but let's see how it plays out. I've noticed there's no stipulations for this one, so I'm expecting a hard-fought technical classic. Oh no, here comes the commissioner, Ernest the Cat Miller. He's going to change everything, and he does. And oh man, it ruins everything. It really ruins this match. The Cat introduces special guests for the match. So you've got the special guest bell ringer, it's Conan. The special guest timekeeper, it's Ray. The belt holder is Disco. They're all members of the evil New Blood stable, of course. Ring announcers Juventud Guerrera, even though Michael Buffer literally already did the ring announcements, so that one doesn't quite make sense. And the Cat announces himself as like the backup referee in case anything should happen to the main one. Uh-oh. They brawl in the crowd to start the match. It's quite intense, quite cool. Nash is a big bloke, isn't he? So it's quite impressive. He's in this massive humanity, but he's standing above them all, just laying into this villain. Then they get back to ringside. Mysterio takes out Nash's leg with a chair, and the quality of the match just... I thought that whistle was going to be better. My lips might be quite dry, but I don't want to redo that take, so we're going to have to live with the bad whistle. No, I'll do it again. One sec. Hang on, I can do this. The quality of the match goes... It's still not. Let's move on. Remember, it's relaxed rules, so the heels can get away with like whatever they want, which doesn't make for an entertaining main event. Like Jarrett works over the leg for a long time, and whenever Nash starts to make a comeback, one of the filthy animals is there to cut him off, and it just sucks all the energy out of the crowd. I don't know who structured this match and who thought it was a good idea, but it wasn't. And then we get like so many, like I guess the path of this match is so confusing because there's huge swings of momentum back and forth, and Nash makes a comeback, then someone does something. So like, for example, he finally overcomes and takes out the filthy animals, and it looks like he's gonna win. He even clocks Jarrett with the tile belt and covers him. And then Disco gets in and just nails the referee, and I'm like, right, well, we're carrying on, I guess. It feels like there's about 5 finishing sequences here, one after the other, but none of them are like that compelling. So then the Cat steps in for the downed referee, and Nash has to fight off all the filthy animals again. He does so, but then Jarrett hits the stroke, but then that's not enough. And then we carry on, so Nash comes back again, but the Cat can't make the count because he goes 1, 2, and then there's something in his eye, and I'm like, right, we get it, like you're screwing Kevin Nash over, but ramming it down our throats, man. And the worst part is it takes so long. Like the point of this, I would have got the point of it, and so would everybody, but you could have done it in a minute or two, and they drag it out for like, this is by far the longest match on the show, by the way. You get a jackknife to the Cat from Nash because he's sick of his cheating ways, but then a jackknife to Jarrett, but now there's no referee. Here comes Charles Robinson. I'm like, finally, we might get a finish to the match. No, Rick Steiner and Tank Abbott come out, and they stop that. I'm like, oh man. I'm getting exhausted explaining it to you. And I'm sorry, I know this isn't the best part of the video because it's like I'm just reading a list of like, you know, it's bad, isn't it? It's really bad. So bad. We're nearly done. We've nearly made it. Scott Steiner comes out, he cuts off Tank Abbott, and they carry on their little rivalry, and they have a brawl off to the side somewhere. And I actually wish we could follow their action because it's pretty good. Like they're hitting each other quite hard. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? But no, we ignore them. We're back to the ring for the main event, and Nash is getting beaten down once again. Finally, right everyone, finally, Big Billy Goldberg's music hits, and I had forgotten he was coming because I've just been so ground down by this main event. And the monster truck, like Austin himself is here. The monster truck comes through and Goldberg's in it. And it's like, yeah, he's coming to save the day. I can't wait to see what happens. The announce team, by the way, should be losing their minds at this. Like, it's this huge moment that we've all been waiting for hours. And instead, they're flagging as well. Like, they're like me right now. They're like, oh, see what's going to happen. Business is about to pick up, but you can tell they're like half-arsing it. It should be this big, like, as I say, like this big Steve Austin level reaction from commentary, but it's the energy levels of like, it's not bad, but it's like if Angelo Dawkins has just got the hot tag in the second hour of Raw. That's the level of excitement we're at here. Goldberg gets in the ring. All the heels run away apart from Jarrett, who's getting back to his feet, and Goldberg measures Jarrett for a big spear, and then Goldberg stops and looks at Kevin Nash, and I realise that I've wasted the last 2 hours and 40 minutes of my life. Sure enough, Goldberg spears Nash instead of Jarrett, and I wish the crowd would just turn around and just start leaving. Obviously, Jarrett wins the match after this, and the big Goldberg entrance that we've been waiting for ages to stop these heels that have been ruining the main event, and we finally get to see some comeuppance. No, he just helps them win anyway, which makes no sense. Because if you look at the drama of a wrestling match or any entertainment medium, I guess, you want rises and falls in tension, like, oh, what's gonna, hey, and then a big crescendo at the end where this kind of goes like, it's just bad. That was the easiest way I could describe it, by the way. Sorry that I've not used my words. But yeah, the pacing sucked all the way through. The heels were just beating him down. And then the heels won anyway because of a deflating heel turn. So there was no excitement, deliberately no excitement to be had. But anyway, as Jarrett's celebrating with his belt, and the champion's a total afterthought in this, by the way, but as Jarrett's celebrating and Goldberg's there in the ring, here come Bischoff and Russo, the real stars of the show, like at the end of any good performance, to take their final bow. And Bischoff and Russo get in the ring, and they look at Goldberg, and they all do a big heelish hug. They're like, we're the boys, we're the lads. And they're basically looking down the camera and saying, you paid your money for this. And that is how the show ends. Oh, woo! What a big thrill ride. After the Nitro that I did last time, I just felt sort of confused and drained and frustrated. But now I'm just annoyed. Like, it's just annoying that they made me sit through that for an ending that only satisfied themselves, Bischoff and Russo, surely. I don't know. Someone thought they were clever doing this. I don't think it was clever, but why don't you leave your thoughts in the comment section down below and stuff. Obviously, thank you very much for watching this series. The feedback's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed doing them, and I'm going to continue doing these as well. But I don't know whether to carry on with this stuff. I don't know if my brain can take it anymore. I might take a little break and look at like a weird episode of something else, maybe like an NXT or an Impact or something, I don't know. But we'll find something else and then maybe circle back to WCW in the future. But if there's any lesson to take from this, I don't know what it is. Because I just feel angry. Angry at the world. Angry at the wrestling world. But yes, as I say, do let me know what you thought of this in that comment section down below. Big shout out to Luke as well. Thank you very much for editing this video. I'm sorry that I give you hefty videos that take up a lot of your time. And tune in next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe out there. Try and stay positive, despite what we've just seen. And I'll see you very soon. Cheers.